Eddie, we spoke a lot yesterday about Dillian and what this week means. I mean, boxing brings the glamour to places, but this place is pretty glamorous all on its own, isn't it?
It is. I mean, we're lucky to be here. You know, we've been locked down for such a long time, aren't we? You see people walking around. I've just seen Ricky Hatton in there with his Bermuda shorts on and his flip-flops. And, you know, everyone's focused about the fight, but Dillian Whyte's not interested in the sun or the boats or the marina. He knows how important this fight is. It's the absolute fight of his life, and he's extremely focused. So we're here mainly not because, you know, just of the weather and the backgrounds, but we're here because they allowed fans, and that's what Dillian Whyte wanted. He said, look, I need energy in there. I need to get myself up for this moment like never before, because I cannot afford to lose this fight. So we've all shipped ourselves over, you know, to mainland Europe for Dillian Whyte, really, and to add something different to this event, and it's a must win for him.
Boxing has been sorely affected, I suppose, by the lack of fans, hasn't it? Because in terms of purse splits, in terms of money, in terms of sales, it's a big part of the sport, isn't it, generating that income? So how much more challenging has that made your job over the last 12 months to put these big fights together?
Very much so, but I mean, also there's a lot of places, Gibraltar has won, and, you know, a lot of places around the world that want to say we're back up and running. You know, we're open for business, we're staging major entertainment and sporting events, and that opens up the opportunity to take big events abroad. I mean, AJ Fury is a good example of that, but you can't beat the atmosphere of having a crowd. You know, we'll only have 500 in here on Saturday night. For AJ against Pulev, we had 1,000, but it felt like 50,000, and, you know, we've got 70,000 for Canelo coming up in early May. So we're starting to see fans return to sport, and I think when we do, we're going to really remember how great it was. So it's been extremely challenging over the last year, but we've seen some of our greatest nights, we've seen some of our greatest moments as a business, and we've enjoyed the challenge. I mean, Fight Camp was spectacular. You've seen behind closed doors some shock results, some surprise results. I mean, Josh Warrington, probably the greatest of that. You know, that period where this is a guy who sells 20, 30,000 tickets, all of a sudden is walking out in front of 100 production crew at Wembley, and, you know, it can sometimes affect you. And Dillian Whyte knows he's got to be so switched on throughout every second of this fight that he's hoping that even those 500 people can just keep him, you know, keep him enthused, keep him switched on, dialed in, and he didn't want to take any chances whatsoever.
Tell us about AJ Fury then. I know the deal's been signed, but where are we up to with regards to finding a site and finalising a date?
So all last week, a lot of calls, fresh approaches as well, and next week I'm off on my travels around the world to try and get this signed. It's the period now where we have to take these proposals that we've had from various sites and see what's real, see what's not, and make sure that it's the right opportunity for the fighters. You know, there has been some conversations about, as we see the Euros potentially going into Wembley in June, July, you know, can we be a part of that at the back end of it? You know, could we get 100,000 at Wembley? And we would need to even have that conversation. So there's a few conversations going on behind the scene with regards to that, but certainly financially all the big offers have come in from the Middle East, the Far East, and other countries. So next week's all about going to have those meetings, and, you know, the next 3 weeks really is the time frame where we want to make sure it's signed and announced.
Saudi Arabia ahead of the queue at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, we have a great experience there back in December 2019 with Anthony Joshua against Andy Ruiz. So they're players that we know are for real. You know, and that sort of cuts out a lot of the time frame in terms of going to all these various meetings. We've been through the process with them. They gave us their word on what they would deliver, and they did that. It was a fantastic event. So, you know, when we did Anthony Joshua against Andy Ruiz too, that was really with the mindset with them of doing the undisputed fight. So they're absolutely keen to secure this fight, and obviously there's two versions of it. So June, July in the Middle East is very warm. Most people would prefer it to be a little bit later, but that's not what's on the table. We want 2 fights this year, and the first one will be in the summer.
And what about the fighters themselves? Are they on the same page, or do we potentially see a bit of conflict over where they want the fight to be held?
No, I mean, look, I'd love to tell you that, you know, it's all about doing the fight in the UK for the fighters, and if they had their choice, they would much prefer to do this fight in the UK, and we will look at that option. But of course, the offers that are coming in financially far outweigh that, so we have to provide the proposals and the best options to the fighters, and if that can include a UK fight, then that would be fantastic for them and for all of us as well. But, you know, you're talking about the biggest fight in boxing. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity for them, the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world, and, you know, we've got to make sure we do our job, work with top rankers. We're doing. I had a call with Bob Arum on Monday. He's looking at some options, we're looking at options. We present them to the fighters, and then we collectively make the best decisions for them, the fans, the fight, the broadcasters, and the most important thing is to see them two in the ring. You know, at the moment I'd do it on this boat. you know, if we had to, I just want to see that fight, and if we can do it in front of fans, and if we can do it in the right place as well, then tremendous.
And just finally on that, give us an insight if you can. What sort of value does this fight take to wherever it goes in that part of the world?
Well, I won't tell you financially, but what I will tell you is it's the biggest fight in boxing. It's one of the biggest fights of all time. It's the undisputed heavyweight world championship between two world heavyweight champions who happen also to be British. And right now, it's not just the biggest fight in boxing, it's probably one of the biggest sporting events in the world. The whole world will be tuned in, and whoever stages this event is going to be extremely lucky, because the eyes of the world will be there. And as I said earlier, there are a lot of places that want to say, we're open for business. Look at what we're doing. We're staging major sporting events like this. So we're not going to have any problem selling it. Like I said, and I've said in various interviews, most people would prefer it to happen a little bit later for the world, just to get back to 100% where it needs to be. But for us, we're focused on the careers of AJ and Fury, and they both need to fight this summer. We don't want interim fights, we don't want warm-up fights, no one wants that. We want to go straight in, and whoever lands this fight is going to be very lucky, because as I said, this is for me the sporting moment of 2021.
And what's the deadline for a site to be agreed if you're going to fight in June, July?
Really the next 3 weeks. You know, I mean, last week was all about collating all the offers, getting them in writing, and next week's about going to see some of these people face to face and trying to get it over the line and make sure we can have a final presentation to the fighter. So, you know, the deadline was set by the teams because we need to deliver for these guys. Tyson Fury is saying, you know, I want to fight, I want to know, and AJ's in camp. We've got to deliver for them. So that's our plan over the next 3 weeks, is to deliver them the proposal that can see this fight announced.